Hi, if you stick with me to the end, just 10 or 15 minutes, you will have a thorough understanding on what's going on in America involving the economy, immigration, AI, crypto, debt, foreign policy, unemployment, and inflation. If you like the video, please subscribe and give it a thumbs up. I do these videos maybe once a week so you can catch them. Let's start off with tariffs. On August 1st, broad tariffs were passed. In other words, what happened was that was the date that President Trump said that if we were not in agreement on terms of a tariff, broad tariffs go into effect. There's been some countries that we've been able to work with, such as Mexico, which has been given a 90-day extension. Canada is still a problem. We don't have a relationship with Canada as far as tariffs are concerned, and what the president has done has decided just to give a blanket 35% rate to Canada. Canada is one of the major players in the lumber market, so there may be some effect upon housing, new housing. The goal really is to have a blanket tariff between 10 and 15% in general for all countries, accumulating $350 billion a year. Tariffs are not new to President Trump. In his first term, he used them as well. And he has changed the deadline, so there's a lot of fluid, this is a very fluid thing. Things are changing very fast. He's notified all the countries that August 1st is when broad tariffs has been invoked. We have not heard yet back from China in terms of a final agreement. They have met, but they're still working toward a tariff agreement. India, again, is in the meeting process. Again, we talked about Mexico and Canada. And let's move on to foreign policy. The president has an American First nationalism program and non-interventionist. That's how he feels. He is focused on bilateral agreements, trade agreements, things of that nature. Just going back to tariffs briefly, we did cut a deal with the EU, and that is one of the largest trade deals in history. As far as crypto and AI is concerned, the president has signed a digital services agreement, which is an element in building, making sure we have energy to support AI and cryptocurrencies. The Doge has looked for cuts and found some cuts. It looks like we might be embracing quantum computing. The president has said that he wants the United States to be the AI capital of the world and the crypto capital of the world. There's something called central bank digital currency, which is supposed to replace the physical dollar. The president says he does not want that to come into effect. Bitcoin and Ethereum in this period has hit new highs. One of the goals is to repeal the Biden CHIPS Act and to build a Bitcoin reserve for the United States. They discussed this at Carnegie Mellon University, where there was an AI summit, a crypto summit. HR 333 is a Digital Asset Clarity Act, which is going to give us better regulation for crypto. And that's one of the key things. It's a framework for digital assets. Another element that he has passed is called the Genius Act, which enables stable coins to be produced in crypto. Government reductions in costs. There's been a steady reduction in government jobs. 46 agencies they plan to eliminate. Doge has found $1.5 billion. And also, as far as student loans are concerned, it has resumed. You have to start paying your student loans if you were in the program prior to that. One of the major issues out there today is, and for a while has been, a rate cut, and the struggle between President Trump and Chairman Powell, and the effect it's had on the markets and the effect it's had on lowering rates. The way I see it is that if the markets are doing well, there is really no incentive for Powell to cut rates. But I do feel there's some politics in here. I feel that there will be 3 rate cuts by the end of the year. There was a dip in the market earlier this year, and we had the fastest recovery in history from that V-shaped dip in the market. There's been an uptick also in mergers and acquisitions. Synopsys made an acquisition. We haven't had M&As for a while. Hewlett-Packard acquired Juniper Networks, and Union Pacific merged with Northern Southern. There's talk about building another energy gas line from Canada. Also, we're now providing, in the European deal for the EU, liquefied natural gas. Immigration, the borders have been pretty quiet. ICE is removing about 2,000 people a month. The economy, what the Federal Reserve uses in order to look at inflation is something called PCE, which is the personal consumption rate. And right now, PCE is lower than what was forecast. The Supreme Court has allowed the president to terminate employees without much issue. The U.S. auto industry is on the rise. Now there's something called the yield curve, and I'll tell you why that's important. Because it's a predictor of recession. To make it simple, if you were to lend somebody money, they would give you a higher interest or yield the longer you lend them the money than the shorter you lend the money. In other words, if you lend somebody money for 2 years, then the yield or the interest they would expect is going to be less than lending somebody something for 10 years because it's a longer period of time and greater risk. That's what the yield curve is about. And there's something called an inversion, where the short-term rate is higher than the long-term rate. That would mean that people don't have that much confidence in the long term. Right now, there is no yield curve inversion. It did happen under the Biden administration. So, another point is the reason why the tariffs and trades are important, is so important that people overlook, is that when countries have a trade surplus with us, what they do is they buy U.S. Treasury bonds. So what they're doing is buying our assets with our money. That's one reason why the tariffs are so important. The job market is an issue. There were revisions done by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and the president terminated the person in charge of these numbers because the numbers were revised and revised down. Even in the corporate world, there's revisions, and changes once they release their number. The problem here is the fact that he fired this lady. Why would someone want that job? A. B. If you got the job, what kind of information you gonna give the president to avoid from being fired? You know, and so in my opinion, that wasn't the right thing to do. The plan is to eliminate many federal employees. We have right now 2 million federal employees. The plan is to cut that down dramatically. We had some good news, except for before this job number I told you about. There were months of jobs being added. We had also very strong market, and also the president is talking about eliminating the tax on capital gains. That would mean quite a bit. Companies are now spending more on capex, on building. I know you're probably aware of all the money in NVIDIA and Google and Facebook or Meta are planning on spending on AI. If you like the video so far, please give me a thumbs up so we can just keep this thing going. Well, in essence, if things right now seem to be in a fluid situation. Things are changing, and by the time you finish the video, things may have changed in some respect. I'd like to thank you very much for your time. Please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Have a good day.